Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Emma Cowling. I am here tonight with Tanya Widen, and we are doing a rearranged kind of session around how Tanya refocused her career. Rearranged because last week I managed to nearly knock myself out, so hence the lovely kind of black eyes and bumped heads that's there. So apologies if you were planning on coming and you can't make it tonight and you're on catch up, but hopefully because we're recording it, you should be able to catch up anyway. So Tanya, it's great to have Tanya here. Tanya is a data security expert, and she gets into kind of the deep techie side of data security. But 5 years ago or so, that's not what she was doing. She was doing a much more customer-facing project management type role. And she made the decision that she wanted to get much more technical. So I thought this was a really interesting story to get Tanya to share her journey of that. And I thought this would be really inspiring for the group. So welcome, Tanya. It is great to have you here. And I'm just going to put the banner up there as well so we can see what we're talking about. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Emma. I'm excited to be here.
So the first question I was going to ask you, before we get into the questions, the thing I've got to say is if there are any comments or any questions, please ask away. We will be responding to them. So please do feel free to ask. It might take us a little while to get to them, but we will be going through and responding. So that's the point of the live event. So yeah, with that said, we're going to get on with it. So first question for you, Tanya, from me is how did you get into tech and what drew you to it? Just give us a bit of background.
Yeah. So I always loved math and solving problems. And when I started developing software, I just loved the challenges of breaking down things into problems and parts and then building a solution and like really then getting to see your code working and getting to play with it. And in the early part of my career, I got to see so many different types of roles and skills. And so I knew what went into building products, you know, more than just the coding, but the user experience and the system integration and maintenance. And so I wanted to sort of try lots of different parts of that.
Yeah, I completely get the problem-solving maths side of things because that's my background, and yeah, just getting drawn into that satisfaction of you solve a problem and then it's like, yes, I fixed it, I sorted it out, and then it's on to the next one. So yeah, okay. So when that took you into a role which was sort of less technical, is that right? So how?
Yeah, so like as my career developed, I had different positions early on in like research and back-end development, but then I moved further and further away from development and moved more into like requirements and project management. And I even thought about moving into sort of a product manager role because I really loved, you know, when you're the expert in a product and you understand the customers and you can help the developers build that. There's certainly a lot of excitement in that, but then I just missed the really technical building it myself and creating things. So
what is it that you were doing when you decided that you were going to refocus your career?
So I was working at a bank and I was working on their websites, but I was again much more in this intermediary role between the developers and the product and marketing team who sort of owned the websites. And so it was really like understanding all the requirements, understanding all of our data because it was a data-based website. And so I loved when I had the chance to like look at our data and understand it. But I personally was still doing much more of the requirements, project management, getting things delivered.
And you decided that actually, because you'd done some of the more detailed technical side of things before, actually you preferred to be doing something like that, and that you'd rather go more in that direction.
Yeah, and it's always hard, like when you're at a company and in a role, to try to figure out sort of how to move either into a different team or sort of laterally. So it was always this thing about like, how do you then do it? You know, how do you either make a change where you're like, okay, maybe I'm not as good as I am at this level, so I have to go down a step to go back to being more junior, but then being more developer level, or then like, at what point did I even think about like going back for retraining? I was like, you know, things are moving on and data methods and big data were just exploding. So then I was like, you know, can I train myself up on these, or would a master's degree in something else help me then get that job of?
Yeah, so it's not just that kind of making the decision. It's kind of, there's all the different things you've got to take into account, and impact on salary, whether it's a move within the organization, and what's that going to affect? How's that going to affect things? So it's quite a big decision to decide to make the change.
Mm.
So and this was about 5 years ago, was it, that you decided?
I guess about. I mean, like, there were always thoughts and inclinations, and then like there's so many interesting parts. So it was never like any job you didn't enjoy parts of it, but it was like trying to look at that bigger, like what really makes you happy and what really makes you want to go into work every day, your favorite bits.
And when we look at it and we try to analyze it, it just feels linear, doesn't it? But actually, of course, it isn't linear. And when you start mapping out kind of where you've gone and the directions you've taken and the dead ends you've gone to, though they're not necessarily dead ends, it's kind of, it is really interesting to kind of, it's not linear at all.
So yeah, that's interesting, because similar, like at a similar time, then I also started working in security, which was another like huge field to start learning more and more about. And so that was another area that I wanted to learn more, explore more, but felt like I wasn't the expert. And so I was the kind of the noob coming in there trying to.
Yeah, that's cool. And so it's the challenge of making the shift in both your job role and in the area that you're looking at as well. That's quite a big thing. So how did you actually go about making that change?
Well, so I'd say I let it sort of fester underneath for a while, you know, and I started taking more online classes. The Coursera and EDX were exploding, so there was just so much available content, and reading blogs. And then we were living in London, so there were so many different meetups I could go to and meet people and listen to talks. So I was so inspired by all the stuff that people were presenting. I also found some like weekend hackathons and stuff, but part of that then also makes you see like so many of the people in this field have like PhDs and move over from academia. So then it was almost like, oh no, like what do I really need to do to make it? And trying to understand this, like that again, like in any field, there's levels and so many different aspects of it that it's not one size fits all.
So that kind of, it's overwhelming, isn't it, when you go into a new field and it's like there's so many other people doing it, and it's so easy for us to look at other people and make an assumption about them, their level of skill or their level of expertise, without realizing that they're probably doing the same to us as well.
Yeah.
So chances are that they might have looked at you and gone, well, she's got all this experience with customers and with project management and all this, so that's going to help her out. And it's a really interesting thing that we put ourselves down against those, isn't it? And so what happened? So you started going out and you started making those kind of learning stuff about this role. So actually going on courses and going on meetups and kind of developing yourself. And then there was a job shift, I'm guessing. You made a change in the job. So what was, tell us about that. And I've kind of said what happens in the first data security role, but how did that kind of unfold?
Yeah. So like I said, I had tried to, like, in my jobs, always try to see if there were ways I could incorporate more of it in my day-to-day, or see if there were ways to transition. But I'd say I'd finally count the role that I took as a threat intelligence company, as a threat analyst. And I was like, well, this is like, they have massive amounts of data and in the security space, and they need to help the customers understand this. And so again, like going in, I was so excited, and like, I love the company, I love the people, I loved my job, but I did see after a while that it was like, it still wasn't the dream role. It wasn't as technical as I hoped. And it's so hard to know these things at the interview stage, like to really understand or to tell yourself that like, maybe it's not that right at the minute, but I'm sure it could develop into it. And so like actually knowing what it will look like. But I mean, like you're saying, everything's a step on the path of the journey. And so like, I learned so much there. And like, again, in the data and security space, even if I wasn't doing so much development on the product there day to day.
So that was taking you into the data security side of things and getting your expertise up there, but it still wasn't going into the technical stuff that you really wanted to be doing and the stuff you were learning about. So, okay, so that role didn't quite work. So then what happened?
Yeah. So then I took another break and I practiced some more and tried to build up my confidence. And like I said, I had taken a lot of classes, but I was like, I need to really like do some projects myself to feel like I'm building it. And I joined a charity project, and that really helped, just because, like, first of all, it was a wonderful environment, but then it was also like getting to work with people who are like, yeah, you're really helping, like your skills are valuable here, and you do have all this knowledge that you, in a room full of PhDs, you don't feel like you're the one showing them, but in another area you can. So that was really good. And then I found another job in a startup in a related security area. And again, at the beginning, like through the interview stage and on paper, it looked and sounded like a dream job at a really great company. And then when you get in there, it just didn't work out as well as I had hoped. And
yeah, and I guess I'm just going to go back a little bit, because the charity project that you mentioned, the thing you told me about that was, so you were doing it for, it was kind of a voluntary project that you then, but it gave you the chance to go in and really practice those skills and get stuck into a project rather than kind of doing the training. It was applying that training into something real world where they needed you to actually do something. And that sounds like that's a really interesting way of growing your skills. That people don't necessarily know that exists, that possibility to do it. So yeah,
it was really good. There's even a charity called Data Kind that like helps data scientists find other charities that want help with data analysis and data solutions for them, but they of course can't afford the huge data scientists, and so they help set up these charity projects.
And that's just such a great thing to think about. So if you want to get into that, then going and finding and getting involved in a project like that, and I guess that also helped you connect with other people as well, and who were working in that area. So yeah, that's cool. So okay, so you did that, and then you ended up at another company, which in another role, which looked like it was going to be right. I'm going to really get it this time. This looks like my perfect role, and it didn't quite fit either. So tell us a little bit more about that. What sort of stuff? What didn't fit for you in that side of things?
Yeah. So I was brought in at a very senior level and into a new function, but again, as an engineer. So in retrospect, I feel like it really needed someone with more experience running a team like that, or having the strategy for the business of how that type of department should run. And because again, like I said, it was a startup and the organization was growing, so things were changing, and I was in a team that like had lots of different functions, but also my boss like wasn't, an expert in my area. So I also felt like I couldn't really go to them. So it was kind of trying to figure out how to help do this, but again, feeling like, I don't know exactly what to do, and I don't know who to go talk to. But then when you're brought in as a senior level, I'm like, I can't admit any weakness. I'm supposed to know everything. And
so those challenges, those kind of things that were coming up, the kind of they brought you in to be a senior person setting strategic direction, but that wasn't really the job that you wanted. You wanted to be getting on with it. And I know this is about the time when we started, during this role, we started talking, and it did sound like they didn't really quite know what they wanted from you. And you didn't quite know what to give them as a result. So there was a lot of kind of confusion. But like you say, when you're in it, you don't want to admit that, okay, I don't know. And that was quite a tough thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's another thing, like, there are, of course, lots of things I could still do to help the organization, but then it was like, what would have been the best? But I'd say over time, like, then they also brought in more people and I understood more things. So
there's a bit there around kind of patience, kind of letting it unfold and allowing and trusting yourself a bit, but also, just that, what was I going to say? Just being able to admit that okay, we don't know what we're doing here. Can we figure this out, or how do we figure this out? Might have been a bit more useful. But when you are moving into that sort of role, And a thing that I was thinking is one of the things that we talked about is that you could have gone into the more strategic kind of management type role within this, but that wasn't the role that you wanted. So there's that tear as well, isn't there? Kind of pulling you into, oh, well, I could step up and be a project manager, but why did I apply for this role? Well, I don't want to be a project manager. I want to do the stuff. Just sticking to your guns there was really kind of quite challenging. Yeah. And what else? So what else was going on in your life that impacted this stuff as well? So what else was happening for you?
So I'd say like around this time, I noticed that I suddenly had some symptoms of like perimenopause, and I like had hot flashes and bad sleep and random crying. And then like some days at work, I just felt so scatterbrained and I couldn't really focus or get organized for meetings. And that just made my confidence plummet. And I felt like old and ashamed and sort of scared. You know, you're scared. You're like, because you don't know that it's ever going to end. You're suddenly just like, is this what my life is going to be like now? Like I could and then because it also felt like at the beginning of that role, I was like, this is not what these people think of me because they don't know me. Like they haven't built up that past with me to see that I can deliver a lot. So yeah, that really affected my confidence there. And so for a while, I mean, like, who do you want to talk to at work about that? You have to, I think, have a very good relationship with your manager if you're ever going to bring it up. So
yeah, being in a new role and that hitting you at the same time. So the hormones kicking in and just looking around and going, who on earth can I turn to for this? That impacts your performance quite a bit as well, doesn't it? So that stuff that's going on in the background and your mood's shifting and changing and just knowing this isn't me. Yeah. So what helped you overcome these challenges, the challenges that you're facing in this role? How did you get through it?
So luckily, I immediately went to my doctor and I was like, what can I do about this? And they were super helpful. And I started some CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a lot about just sort of like getting your anxiety under control, your thoughts and negative thoughts in particular. They also prescribed me some meds just to sort of help with the physical systems. And then additionally, like a therapist, but almost like a coach, like somebody external from work that I could talk to about work. And that really helped me in combination to sort of get up the courage to talk to my boss and make a plan for like how to focus on a couple things, because again, like across the business there were so many different teams and things, and I think that was part of the, you know, like anxiety and overwhelmingness of it. Like, then just having that external support for breaking things down and trying to focus on things 1 week at a time.
Well, and because when we feel low and we start to think we've got to solve the world's challenges, somehow it becomes all on us to solve everything, and just having someone there to help guide you and say, actually, just do what you can right now, just one little step and one more little step, and actually seeing things change as a result of that. That's powerful. and being willing to, I think the other thing I heard in that is going to the doctor, but we don't always think about that. We just think, well, I'll just muddle along with it. But knowing that, sort of seeing in yourself that, okay, I can go and see a doctor and I can talk about this with the doctor, and there might be some solutions there, which then it sounds like it did unlock some extra support for you. So
I'm feeling lucky as well, because like talking to others, like I know this still isn't talked about enough. It's a completely embarrassing subject that nobody wants to admit to, but like it happens in life. And I felt
and the thing so I'm at that stage where I'm just starting to get some flushes and starting to go, is it, isn't it? It doesn't matter if it is or it isn't, but it's that kind of, oh, this is a whole new phase of my life that I know absolutely nothing about, because it just doesn't get talked about. Because we hide it away. We think we should be secreting it away and just, because it's a woman's thing or whatever it is. So I'm intrigued to see what comes through for me.
We're here to support you. I can give you all my
and that's the thing. It definitely helps knowing that you've been through it, and that there's other people in the group that have mentioned that they've been through this side of things, and just having some people around you to reach out to just makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Mm.
But even then, knowing that the doctors are there as well, and that's the thing that I love, is that you're kind of, you saw that you could reach out, even though you're going through all this stuff, that actually that's the way that you went, and that it did start to unpick things. And
I'd say part of that's how it brought me to you, because like that really opened me up to this idea of like coaching, and not just like talking to a therapist, but talking to a coach about like work, like just being able to talk about work goals, and that with somebody who's like not your boss or your friends, that can help you think through things. Or also for me, it's like having some external accountability, because I know that, you know, it helps me to then say, I'm not doing this for me, but I promise someone else will do it. So
yeah, and having that independent external person that you can just talk things through with, and especially if you're not got that support at work and your boss isn't that supportive, then finding someone that can help. Yeah. And so that leads me on, because that's about the time when you then joined the mentorship program. So how did the Authentic Tech Leaders mentorship program help you in this?
I'd say in so many different ways. Like, first of all, just like, because of the like structure of the course, for me, it was very helpful to like have the units. And then like I made the time to work on the weekly, I don't want to call them assignments, but like tasks that we were learning about. So like, I found it really good to review my mission, and especially notice, like in line with the time audit, that I just like want to do 200 things, but then you never finish anything. So like at least figuring out a way to like reduce this down, and again, make smaller steps that you complete, so that you can feel like you're getting along. And then for me, the skills audit was amazing, just to, again, it's the same, like every time I interview, I'm just like amazed at like, I forget about all the things I've done over the years, and you just forget because you just do them day to day, and you have to like see it all listed out to really admit to yourself everything.
That confidence boost that you get from seeing all the things that you've done, and especially it's really useful, isn't it? Seeing it, especially when you've been beating yourself up about all the things you're not doing. You kind of see this list of things. Oh no, I can do that, and I've done that, and I've developed there, and I'm not that bad after all.
And then for me as well, I would point out like the resilience unit was really helpful. And it was so funny, because it's like at some point I realized that like I never think of a plan B. There's only plan A, and it can be big things and it can be small things. It can be like how we're going to drive to the store. But in my head, there's plan A. And when we go a different way, I like get anxiety. And so just being aware of that, first of all, and then thinking about like, it's okay if we do plan B, and I know I can handle it. And like, I recently had to fly to London during COVID, and I was like so anxious at the airport. And I was like, what am I actually like anxious about? That I don't get on this flight? Like, who cares? I don't need to go. It was like for selling our house. And then I was like, then I'll go a different week or something. And then like just really thinking that there's other ways, there are plan Bs. It doesn't need to be this, and I'll get on, was helpful.
It doesn't need to happen the way you think it should happen. And so often it doesn't. But when it doesn't, it's knowing that you'll cope with it, isn't it? Seeing that. And in some ways, that's kind of what you're saying in what you talk about, the career step by step. It's like going to one role and it wasn't right, and then you responded and you changed and you moved again, and then you moved again. It's kind of like, okay, it's not happening, but that's not your fault that it's not happening. It's nothing to do with you. It's just that's what opens up, and it's the journey that we're going on.
And then it wouldn't be right not to also mention just like the community and getting to meet the other amazing people. Like, it was such a good like sounding board, and hearing other people's stories and being inspired by them. And it is such a lovely place, and bouncing off meeting different people and really getting to know them over the period of the program, isn't it? It's a chance to kind of connect with people who are go through similar things to you. So that's cool. And so now you're in a new role.
So you've made another shift.
Mm.
Tell us a little bit about that. And that came out through the program, didn't it? So tell us about the new role and how things are going.
Yeah. So now I'm definitely in a more back-end data development role in the security space. And again, it's just in a company and a team that are amazing. And I already even in my first month, I feel like I was making more contributions and actually checking in code and both because I could, but also pushing myself that I want to sort of show that I can and not just wait and then see how it goes. So it's been really exciting so far.
And how have you approached it differently this time compared to last time, based on what you've learned and what you've picked up?
Yeah. So I guess part of the things is just realizing some of the things I was trying to avoid, like reaching out to people for help, trying to be much more open about I'm working on this. Can anybody help me do this thing? And again, everybody on the team is open and happy to help. So that's really good. And then, not being afraid to admit when I don't know something, because our team is responsible for tons of systems with lots of different infrastructure. And so it's impossible for anyone to know anything and be the expert in that. So you can always then work together and.
Yeah. Being that in that team. And that's one of the things I've picked up from you is the change that's happened from the last role is that you now actually have a team of people around you who are doing similar things to you. Mm-hmm. So you do have a more obvious support network, but you've also made more effort to reach out and connect with them as well, and see that actually it's okay to be connected to them, and that's clearly making a difference.
And I think also this showing your work more, when it's not finished, being open to that criticism as opposed to being afraid of somebody saying well, clearly you're not very good at this. Nobody's saying that. They're just happy you've done something. But the fear of somebody saying that you're no good at this
Yeah, I had a really interesting conversation with someone this week about this as well, that kind of sometimes you put it out there and it kicks off this whole discussion and you think it's because some sort of comment on you, but sometimes it's just making the discussion that needs to happen. And so you've actually made something, might not be what, again, it's the plan B. It might not be what you intended to happen. You might have just wanted them to go, yeah, that's great. But actually this whole thing opens up and it feels like a big can of worms. But if you hadn't opened the can of worms, then the discussion would never, the things would have just kept on being buried. And then you might have found it out later down the line and it would have been too late and stuff. Mm. So yeah, it's definitely, the more you can get used to sharing your stuff early and kind of not worrying about the criticism, the better it gets, definitely. But you have to do it. So you have to kind of overcome that hurdle and see, I didn't die.
Yeah. And also because I'd say one of my problems is anytime I want to present it, then I want to have everything well mapped out. I want to have the, arc, and then it's then you still never do it because there's always one more thing you can add to the thing you're going to do before you present it to anyone. And I'm just
it'll never be perfect.
No.
So what do you wish that you'd known at the start of all this process?
Well, one thing that's been clear for me is like I said at the beginning, I just love taking these online classes. There's always so much to learn. There's hundreds of new topics, but that's all well and good, but the experience of actually building something out, either on a project by yourself or through these charity projects, or if I could find a place through work. So it's actually building something and sharing it with someone is definitely a takeaway I will do faster.
Yeah.
The hackathons and the charity projects have been amazing for that. And then also I'd say the coaching, I wish I would have done it earlier. I wish it had been open to me in my eyes that now I see these books that are why do only athletes have coaches? It's everybody could, focus their career more to have these external people to talk to help them.
Yeah, I think coaching is sometimes seen as a remediary thing, so that you're doing something wrong if you've got a coach. But actually, when you look at athletes have coaches to make them better.
Yeah, business leaders have coaches. It's just all the other normal people who don't. So.
Yeah. Well, and of course I'm pro coaches, but anyway. Yeah, more people need coaches. But that's what I found as well. But when I first kind of had a coach, it was oh, I've got someone there to give me that support and to really explore things in a way that I couldn't explore with my boss because I might worry about what they think, or I couldn't explore with my friends because they're going to tell me what they think I should do.
Mm-hmm.
So having that independence really helps, doesn't it?
Right.
And going back to what you first said, is that the other thing is the going out and just applying it and being willing to fail and have a go and see yourself grow by doing that. That part of the learning process that's just, yeah, scary and important. So we're just about come to the end of the questions, and I was just so there's a couple of people watching, and if you've got any extra questions to add in, please do stick them in the comments, and Tanya is quite happy to answer them either now, or we'll be checking back in and I'll make sure she sees them as well, so we can always kind of answer them offline. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask, please do stick them in there. And so Tanya, if people want to get in contact with you and follow up, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. I'm sure if you search for me there, you can find me. There's not many people with the same name.
And we'll share the link as well after the thing so that you can find you. And you're open to kind of people dropping you a message and saying, I want to make a change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what I love about your story is that it's not the simple, I wanted to make a change and it happened. It is the real kind of, okay, I want to make a change and I went down this journey, this kind of road, and then I had to change my direction a little bit, and then I had to change again. And it's just very real life. But not in, that's not to put people off making a change. It's worth it, isn't it?
It's definitely worth it. And it's also like, your life is so long. Like, this isn't necessarily the end career for me either. Like, who knows what I might do then in another 5 years or 10 years. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I want to keep growing and learning. Life is all about growing and learning.
Yeah. And well, yeah, you don't know whether you might kind of end up taking more of your other roles in and rolling them up together and how that's going to go. And you just don't know whether it's going to go. I spoke to someone the other day who's a sewing, went from tech to sewing back into tech. In fact, she's just joined the group. But it's just like such a random change in career, going from kind of developing software to sewing dresses and then back. But actually what she was talking about was how both of them were actually creative and solving things, but in such different ways. And you just never know where that kind of problem solving skill is going to come through, do you?
It's true. I love like how all the boot camps and stuff feel like they're opening up more now, an easier path to do a change, that people who have studied something else are like, I can get into tech now if I take one of these 1 month or 3 month boot camps to help them get that boost. And it's not like you have to get a degree or. Yeah,
the barriers are coming down. Yeah. And it's also framing it in different ways. It's not necessarily about being good at maths or being good at certain things. It's actually problem solving or creativity, which is in all of us, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you get the multidisciplinary, like they think of problems in a different way, and then you can come up with better solutions.
Yeah. So we haven't had any comments come through, but if you do, and if you're watching this on replay as well, please do ask your questions, add your comments, because we will be checking in, as I said. But it's been absolutely fantastic having you here, Tanya. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Please do come back in and share any further developments as well. And if you're I should also say, if anyone wants to join us on the Authentic Tech Leaders Mentorship Program, the next round of that's starting in September. So there's a bit of time yet. If you're interested, let me know, because we've talked about that. But yeah, thank you very much, Tanya, for coming in, and we will see everyone very soon.